Hello to all friends, welcome to Cinema Crave. Today we're going to go over all the information you need to know before watching the final season of Stranger Things. We're not going to summarize the series, we'll only review information that helps you enjoy the new season more. I have a lot to say, we have 34 episodes worth of information, so let's get to it quickly. The story begins with the birth of a boy named Henry, right after the end of World War II. Henry's father had been a soldier in the war and carried all kinds of horrifying memories from it. After the war, he started a family, and when Henry was 12 years old, he hated the life he had, he hated his family and everyone else. At that same age of 12, he had a belief that people were trapped in a meaningless cycle, that each generation was just a weaker copy of the previous one. He had a nihilistic view of life, similar to Tyler's philosophy in the movie Fight Club. Now imagine someone like him discovering that he has supernatural powers, which the series never explains the origin of. He can enter the minds of living creatures. At first, he connects with spiders, then gradually discovers more of his powers. He can torture or kill animals with his mind. As time goes on, he realizes he can also enter the complex minds of humans, but entering a human mind is not as easy as entering an animal's. He first has to find the weak point in their brain. He discovers that bad memories act as a doorway into people's minds. He learns that if he enters their mind, he can not only kill them, but also take their strength for himself. It's as if he steals the minds of others and absorbs them into his own mind, gaining more power each time he does it. In 1959, when he was 12, Henry carried out his first attack on humans, and his first victims were his own family members. He first killed his mother and sister. Later, when he tried to use his father's horrifying wartime memories to kill him too, his father survived by chance. At that moment, a radio was playing music, and that music triggered a good memory in his father's mind. Because of that, Henry's father escaped death, and no matter how much Henry used his powers, he couldn't kill him. Henry passed out, and here we learn one of Henry's weaknesses. If a good memory enters the victim's mind, it can save them. Henry's father is taken to safety, and Henry is blamed for the murder of his family. They send his father to prison, and young Henry is handed over to the government to be used for scientific research. He is delivered to a facility called Hawkins, and a man named Dr. Brenner becomes the director of the project. He starts Project 00 in 1960, which is more than 20 years before the events of the series. This scientist, in order to control Henry and prevent him from killing others, implants a chip in his brain to suppress his powers. But the project's goal is very interesting. They plan to study Henry and do something so that new children are born with similar supernatural powers. They intend to turn these children into weapons. They acquire these children through different methods, and we only know how one of them was obtained. 11, who becomes the main hero of our story. This scientist did not work only on the Hawkins project. He had other government projects under his supervision. One of these projects was called MK Ultra. In this research, they aimed to control human minds. For this, they published newspaper ads seeking volunteers for university research. A young woman named Terry came to collaborate with the university, and Dr. Brenner experimented on her with drugs. No one knew that she was pregnant at the time, and they lied to her, saying that her baby had died while she was in the lab, even though they had given her drugs and stolen the baby from her. In this way, this scientist was able to take one child for another one of his projects. This is how we understand that the other children in Project 00 were also stolen from their families using various tricks. 11 grows up under the supervision of this doctor, to the point where she even called him father. The scientist turns her into subject number 11. Henry has been imprisoned in this laboratory for 9 years. And in those 9 years, they were able to add 11 children to the project. During these years, 11's mother had not been idle. She realized her child had been taken from her and attacked the laboratory several times, but was never successful. Until one day, she attacked with a gun, causing the death of one of the security personnel. The doctor, in order to stop her, gave her brain electric shocks, causing permanent brain damage. 11's mother is still alive, but mentally trapped in a dark space. Up to this point in the story, 11 has not been able to help her mother at all. So, when 11 enters the laboratory, Henry is already 24 years old. 8 more years pass inside the lab. 11 is now 8, and Henry is 32. At this point, Henry has been trapped there for 19 long years and still imprisoned in the lab. After 19 years, Henry finally gets a chance to escape. But how does he trick 11, and why does he choose her? There are two reasons. First, the other children bullied her, and second, she was the most powerful of all. 11's vulnerability made it easy for Henry to gain her trust. He comes to her and says, "I will help you escape from here." 11 is motivated because the other children had been bullying her. But Henry then says, "I cannot escape because a chip is implanted in my brain. Now that I have helped you escape, you must help me remove this chip from my head." The only one powerful enough to remove the chip from this monster was 11, and she falls for it and does it. The result is that Henry can take 19 years of revenge on everyone who was in the laboratory. Here, when 11 sees what kind of monster she has unleashed, she tries to fix her mistake by fighting Henry. She uses so many of her powers that, after defeating Henry, she opens a gate to a parallel world. 11 did not open this gate intentionally. The parallel world, as you know, contains countless alternate universes. 11 opened one of them, which is called the Upside Down. This was not a random world. It was a world connected to 11's powers, and the story still has not explained the link between 11 and the Upside Down. 11's powers caused the gate to open, and Henry was thrown into this world. The gate is unstable, and it closes very quickly. When Henry enters this world, he realizes that it is not properly formed. The normal conditions for life do not exist there. There are strange creatures with no proper faces, and even the atmosphere, like in some bat-like creatures, changes Henry's appearance. But in this world, Henry makes a fascinating discovery. Particles resembling dust, called shadow particles. What are these? They are similar to single-celled organisms, although even simpler. They cannot really be called living creatures, they do not even have DNA, but they have an interesting feature. A kind of neural connection exists between them. When one reacts, all the others react in exactly the same way, as if they share a single mind. However, because they are not intelligent, they cannot perform any complex actions. They can create something like a storm of dust in the air. We know that Henry could control minds, so he connects his brain to these simple organisms. Since they are all connected to each other, this allows him to combine them into a complex entity called Mind Flayer. With this creature, he can control the entire Upside Down, but it's useless to him. Henry remains trapped. 11 is the only one who can open the gate. He must wait here until either 11 herself or someone with powers similar to 11 opens the gate. 4 years later, in 1983, this happens. When 11 was 12 years old, the laboratory was trying to turn her, the only survivor of Project 00, into a weapon. They had discovered that when 11 was in a completely catatonic state, she could amplify her mental powers. They were working on this so that 11 could perform espionage, for example, spying on others. By accident, 11 connects with the Upside Down through her mind, as I mentioned. The story has not yet explained the connection between 11 and the Upside Down. When 11 reaches into the Upside Down with her mind and touches a creature there, it causes the first stable gate to open between the real world and the Upside Down. This is where chaos begins. Some of these creatures enter the real world, and it also creates an opportunity for Henry to step into the real world. Here, one of the biggest secrets of the series occurs. When the gate opens, one of these creatures enters the real world and kidnaps Will, taking him into the Upside Down as if he were its prey. When this happens, an exact copy of Hawkins is created in the Upside Down, with all the details set in the year 1983. Interestingly, time in the Upside Down stops at that moment and does not progress. The series has not explained why this happens. The Upside Down is not the same as it was when Henry first entered it. After Will is kidnapped and enters this world alive, the copy of our world exists inside the Upside Down, and time there is completely frozen. Because of this copy, it is possible to create certain effects on the real world. For example, if you stand in the exact same location as its Upside Down counterpart, you can influence the lights, or even as Will once did, make a phone call home. What 11 did wasn't just open a gate. It slightly disrupted the order of the world. Sometimes unstable portals would flicker open and close rapidly, and sometimes monsters would slip through into our world before returning. When the gate finally opened, everything fell into chaos. This allowed 11 to escape from the laboratory. Here we realize just how powerful the team behind 11 really was. They could listen to all the phones in the town, their agents could roam freely on the streets, and they could kill anyone they wanted. 11's escape led her to befriend a group of people in Hawkins, which is where the main characters enter the story. Naturally, she becomes friends with Will's missing friends, but the most important person she befriends is the town sheriff, Jim. Why is this important? Because he had lost a daughter around 11's age to cancer. The death of his child destroyed his relationship with his wife, and they had separated. He felt a deep emptiness in his life. Because of this background, when he meets 11, he is emotionally affected, and he feels as if she is his own daughter. This is why he becomes involved in the story. He helps them find Will and even enters the Upside Down himself to rescue him and bring him back. After Will is rescued, the person they call Papa tries to capture 11. She uses her powers again, opening a new gate, which makes everyone think she has been killed. Then the sheriff intervenes and keeps 11 with him for a while. 11 running away is pointless. She goes to live with the sheriff and thinks things are fine, but Henry, after being trapped in that world for 4 years, finally gets the chance to enter the real world. That's why he brings the Mind Flayer into this world. Why does he bring it here? Because Henry still isn't powerful enough to enter this world himself, and he also can't open the gate on his own. So he enters this world indirectly. What is his goal? He wants to have the same control in the real world that he has in the Upside Down, meaning he wants to clear the path so that eventually he can physically enter this world himself. He also said that when he enters this world, he wants to turn it into a better version. He probably wants to enter everyone's mind. And just as he has complete control over the Upside Down, he wants to gain control over all human minds. But as we said, because he is not strong enough yet, our heroes can defeat him, and 11 uses her powers to completely close the gate. And here we discover an important truth in the story. Remember I said there is a collective intelligence in the Upside Down? Henry can connect his mind to many of the creatures in the Upside Down. Will, as someone who was trapped in the Upside Down for a while and almost killed one of the creatures there, even left a piece of its own body inside Will and was feeding on him like a parasite, has formed an unstable connection to Henry's mind. Sometimes, Will can sense Henry's thoughts, understand his motives, or even the reverse. Sometimes Henry can take control of Will's mind and use him as his spy. But these controls are unstable, though they can influence the future of the story. For example, one of Henry's weaknesses was discovered through this. When a place is heated, the creature under Henry's control begins to die. That's why they realized burning is one of the ways they can defeat Henry. But as we said, Henry is still weak, they defeat him, and 11 closes the gate. The gate closes here, but that doesn't mean the world will easily be free from the Upside Down. Sometime later, a mall is opened in Hawkins, but in reality, it was built by the Russians so that underneath it, they could design a secret laboratory to try to reopen the gate to the Upside Down, this time using technology. They wanted to replicate 11's powers scientifically. They almost succeed and manage to reopen a half-formed gate, and this gives Henry another chance to step into this world again. But during the time Henry was trapped once more, he realized something. As long as he does not have 11's powers, it is useless, because every time a gate is open for him, it closes again after a while and he gets stuck there. He needs to be able to open the gate between the two worlds independently. The second time Henry enters this world, his powers have grown and he has gained more skill, allowing him to create deeper effects on the world. Now he can directly enter people's minds. He makes them see hallucinations, or with the help of the Mind Flayer, he can cause rats and other creatures to fuse their bodies together and create a new monster. But Henry's goal this time in creating this new creature is not the same as before. He does not want to take control of the world. His main goal is to confront 11 so he can enter 11's mind. Because as he said earlier, anyone he can hunt, he can take their powers for himself. And if he can enter 11's mind even once, he will gain her powers. And then he will finally be able to open the gates independently. He almost succeeds, even though our heroes split into several groups to fight Henry. One of the groups was Jim's group, which went to destroy the machine that opened the gate. Jim himself got trapped and captured by the Russians, but the gate was closed. Before the gate closed, Henry managed to achieve his goal. He briefly entered Eleven's body, infected her with a piece of himself, and stole most of her powers. Eleven had used so much energy fighting him that she was completely drained afterward. Eleven's powers disappeared, and Henry was finally able to understand for the first time how Eleven opens the gates. As we said, with the Russian gate closed, Henry now had all the time he needed. He practiced and perfected his new ability till he could open the gates independently in his own way. From this point in the story, we meet Henry's new form, his appearance fully changed by the conditions of the Upside Down. He became a monster, and they gave him the name Vecna. For the third time, Henry wants to enter this world, and now he has a new plan. Since he can open gates himself, he wants to open 4 gates. Each one is opened through a murder. Why? Because a gate can only be opened from the real world side. So Vecna enters the mind of a person who's suffering, feeds on their trauma, kills them, and the moment they die. So whenever a murder happens, a gate opens. Why does he want to open 4 gates? Because once he does, a massive rift between the 2 worlds will form so large that the Upside Down will pour into the real world like a natural disaster, an apocalyptic event. Vecna chooses his victims, 3 new characters. He kills one of them in a cabin, drowns another at the bottom of a lake, and kills the 3rd one in the middle of a road. And here we also discover an important truth. The compass needles can always point toward the locations of these gates. The compass always turns toward these gates, so if someday they want to find a gate, they can do it with a compass. The 4th victim Henry chooses is Max. Who was Max? This character entered the story after Eleven managed to close the gate. She had come to Hawkins with her stepbrother. She didn't have a good relationship with him. The previous time Henry attacked this world through that Russian gate, he entered the mind of Max's brother and used him to carry out his plans in this world. In the end, Henry killed Max's brother. This created a deeply painful memory in Max's mind. She somehow blamed herself for his death, and Henry wanted to use exactly that memory to enter her mind. But as always, when our heroes want to defeat Henry, they split into several teams. Since Henry is coming to hunt Max, and they know Max is the next victim, they decide to form several groups. One group stays in the real world and goes to the house where Henry committed his first murders, the house where he grew up and where he killed his mother and sister. They plan to wait there for Henry to come hunt Max, meaning they will use Max as bait. Now, what about the other 2 groups? These 2 groups will go into the Upside Down through the gates we mentioned, the ones that can be found using the compass. One of these groups is supposed to play music to help Max remember her good memories when Henry is trying to hunt her, so they can buy her more time and prevent her from being easily captured. The second group will enter the Upside Down version of Henry's childhood house. Why? Because if Henry wants to hunt someone in the real world, he must be physically present in the same location but in the Upside Down version of it. So if Max is going to be hunted in that house, Henry's physical body will be inside that same house, but in the Upside Down. Their plan is that when Henry goes to hunt Max, they will burn his physical body there. When they enter, they discover another truth. Anyone who steps into the Upside Down is detected by Henry. Why? Because the place is full of bats, and as we said, all their minds are connected. The bats act like Henry's informants. The music group distracts the bats, so Henry will not notice the second group coming to attack him. They carry out their plan, though they fail a little. But then they get extremely lucky. 11. Without being part of the plan at all, without even knowing she was supposed to help them, suddenly arrives and helps them. Now, what was going on with 11? Sometime earlier, after 11 closed the gate, she began living a secret life. We also had a character named Nancy, you remember her, Mike's sister. Nancy worked at a newspaper. After 11 closed the gate for the first time, Nancy exposed the entire Hawkins project through the newspaper, creating a huge scandal for the United States government. Someone helped her there, Murray, a conspiracy theorist who used to work for newspapers, a man who brings a comedic tone into the story whenever he appears. Because of this scandal, the laboratory was shut down, the scientists were left jobless, and another important thing happened. The military also became aware of the situation. Another part of the government, which had no knowledge of the experiments at all, became aware of them when Henry started his serial killings and reopened the gates. The government split into two factions. One group was the army, who thought the murders were Eleven's doing. They began searching for 11 with extreme violence. Their only goal was to kill 11, and anyone who got in their way was also killed. One stubborn general was determined to kill her. The other faction was a government group that knew the murders were Henry's work. They wanted to rebuild the Hawkins laboratory and find a way for 11 to regain her powers because they knew she was the only one capable of stopping Henry. As a result, 11 was once again in the hands of the people who had previously run the Hawkins laboratory, completely separated from her group of friends. There was no plan beyond this, and these two government factions were in opposition to each other. During this limited time, the character they called Papa came and helped 11 remember her old memories. 11 recalled the massacre from Experiment Zero. Over all these years, because she had retained some of her memories, she thought she had been the main cause of the murders. Now, in the story, when she fully remembered her past, she realized that she had not been the true monster. She finally remembered that Henry was the one who had carried out these killings and that the real monster was Henry. And the same character, Papa, had actually started the laboratory. Here, 11 was able to escape from her bad memories and regain her powers. Because the negative thoughts left her mind, her powers even became stronger than before. But she could never stay long in the laboratory because the army attacked it, killing many people inside and even causing Papa's death. Their goal was to kill 11, but they failed because she used her powers, even causing a helicopter to crash. 11 managed to escape the army and rejoin her group. Here, we understand that Papa and the laboratory are no longer part of the story, but the army will definitely be present in the next season and will be one of 11's enemies. Once 11 regained her powers, she used them to check on her friends and understand Max's plan and the others. Suddenly, in the middle of the story, she comes to help them, allowing them to more easily carry out their roles. With 11's help, Henry is challenged, and the kids have the chance to reach Henry's physical body and burn it, but they still cannot kill him. Henry is thrown out of a window. When the kids go to find his body, they see that he has escaped, but Max is killed for a very brief moment, which puts her into a state similar to brain death. So when 11 enters Max's mind to see what is happening, she sees nothing but complete darkness. Because Max was killed even for just a moment. The fourth gate opens. Henry's plan finally works. A massive rift tears open between the two worlds, creating an apocalyptic disaster. Now Henry can seriously enter the real world. Max also falls into a coma-like state. Here, when 11 and Henry have a brief battle, we realize something. They are not just enemies. They are complete opposites, and each side relies on memories to fight. Henry uses bad memories to gain his power, while 11 must think of her good memories to fight him. Now that this natural disaster has occurred, all the heroes of the story are reunited while everyone is fleeing Hawkins. All four of 11's friends, Mike, Will, Lucas, and Max, come back together after being separated. Lucas had even changed his friends for a while and joined the basketball team, hanging out with other people, but after many experiences, he returned to his original friends. Will, 11, and Will's brother Jonathan, who had left Hawkins and even changed schools to settle in California, are also back in Hawkins because of these events. Jim also managed to escape from prison with the help of Will's mother, and Murray, remember, he's the conspiracy theorist who adds humor to the story. With their help, Jim escaped from the Russians and returned to Hawkins. Will's mother and Jim's relationship also became more serious, and now they are officially together. Mike's sister Nancy, who worked at the newspaper, Steve, and Will's brother Jonathan still maintain their love triangle and have not decided who will end up with whom. Now imagine all these heroes returning to Hawkins under these circumstances. They look at the gray landscape, the same one that Jim saw in Season 2 in the Hawkins Lab basement, right before all the monsters from the Upside Down invaded the real world. The kids all look at Hawkins to see what plan Henry has for them. Will's mind is connected to Henry, so he can sense many things before they happen. More importantly, Max is in a coma, and Henry himself has said that anyone he hunts does not die. They go into his mind. Now we have to wait and see whether Max, even in her coma, can still help her friends fight back from the inside. Well, friends, This has been a detailed recap of Stranger Things. I hope you found it interesting and that it will help you enjoy watching the new season even more. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit that like button. See you in the next one.